Hello, my name is Rob Garn. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how we can use a class to hold data for our database. Now, when we made this program before, everything treated the data coming in is basically a tuple or a list, and you can see that because these the SQL command takes a sequence in here to bring things in. And this works fine, but it's not always clear what things are. One way we can improve this is actually making a class for our demo item. So I'm going to make a new module called um, demo item.py, and this is going to be a class, and it's often called a model. And we'll have we'll bring in num1 by default. We'll set it to 0. We'll have a num2 by default. We'll set it to 0. I guess this would be 0.0. Just make sure it's clearly a floating point number. And then text, we'll set it equal to an empty string. And then we also need self, of course. So we will do 3 of these. And so now we have num1, num2, and text coming in into our object. This is how we can instantiate it. And I'll go ahead and stub this out more completely, make our get and set methods. And then we'll go ahead and throw in a property. This is overkill for this simple class, but just to give you the full flavor of making a class for something. So num1 is equal to a property and then we'll repeat this for num2. Make sure I get all these. And then this will be okay, all very formulaic. Looks good, I think. Yep. So we have this, now we have this class that we can use to hold demo items. What does that allow us to do? Well, let's look at our repo. So when we get an item, what we're going to do is we're going to use this class Oh, and then one other thing that we need in our demo item is there's also self dot row ID is equal to row ID. We'll bring this in as well. And we're going to use 0, because row ID always starts at 1, we're going to use 0 as the default. That indicates that this hasn't actually, nothing's been done with this. We could also use -1. I think I'm going to use 0 to indicate that this is a new item. And then, of course, we'll make a property for this as well. So we need row ID in here as well. Okay, so now we have this class demo item. We are going to now execute. We've got our data. And rather than returning data like this, what we're going to do is say item. So after here, we will say item is equal to a demo item. And we'll need to import that. So we'll import so we'll get the demo item class that we just made from here. We'll make one of those and we'll say item. And we can use the constructor. So for row ID, that will be the first item. And then the rest will just go in order. That's num1, that's num2, and that's num3. Now remember, why do we have this 0 here? Because when we get the data from fetchall, fetchall gives us a list of all the things it gets. It's only getting one thing because this where clause. So but we have to select that first one, and then from within that tuple, it's the first tuple in the list. Then we grab the first element of the tuple, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to return this item. So now we're returning a demo item. And just to simplify it, we don't really need this variable. We can just return this directly like that. So we create a demo item, and then we're going to return it. So we're going to return it as a class object that looks like this. Let's see what that looks like with our app. So where do we get item? We call it here, and then we're going to call display item. Well, let's see. So knowing that this ends up getting passed back to display item, we're going to go to our view and look at display item. And we're going to make this so that it's also going to use that same class. And since we know that now this is going to be that, we can use, I'm going to rename that to item. because I think it just makes more sense. We're going to say item dot and let's see. So there's a demo item. And one thing we can do, if you put a colon here, you can specify that this is going to be a demo item, and it helps you get the elements. So row ID will be the row ID, and we can see this kind of cleans up. So now I'm using I'm using the demo item properties. We have the gets, we have the sets, we could use those, but we also have these properties that make this just a lot clearer, I think. So this is easier to see what's happening by specifying. This specifies that this parameter is a demo item, and kind of cleans up this code a little bit by using a class to hold our information. Does it work? Let's see. Yep, it works. So maybe, can we do that with other things? Well, let's see. Go back to our repo. We did it for this single get item. Now let's see if we can do it with this get all. Well, how does this work? Data is going to, right now it's returning a, if we do this, it returns a list of tuples. We'll run this just to show it. Running. If we look at data, you can see it's a list of tuples. Well, it'd be better if this is a list of class objects, and we can do that here. So we've got our data, and then what we can do is we can say for row in data, we'll make an empty list, and then we will say tbl demo items dot append, and what we'll append is our database, is our, let's see, yeah, we'll create a demo item here, and it's going to be very similar to this, except that we're going to replace this with row 0, row 1, row 2. So since this row is just that tuple, we're just taking all of the elements of that tuple and instantiating a demo item and then appending it to this data. And since this will take a little while, I think we can take this, and we can do this after we close the database. So we'll get the data from the database, then we will return this. So now it'll be a list. So let's run this, and let's save this and run this in debug mode. And you can see now, this is now a list of demo items. You can see like 1.111, item 1, these class objects. This is now a list of class objects. In fact, let's to see the process of it converting. Let's go to here. And let's run in debug mode. Oh, we're running the wrong thing. So F5 on the DB app. Here we are, table demo. We've already gotten the data items. We can see that those are a list of tuples. That's what we get from the cursor fetch all. We want to now convert these tuples into class objects. So I'm going to step over and let's see what so data is that list of, it's a list of tuples. See the square braces here? That makes it a list of tuples. When I get row, we can see that row is just the first tuple. So now we're on the first tuple, and now we're going to make a demo item by taking row 0, which is the row ID, 1.1, 11, and item 1 are going to be passed to demo item. So I'm going to step into that and see what that looks like. There we step into our constructor for our class. We can see row IDs bringing in as 1, num1 is 1.1, num2 is 11, and text is item 1. So this now initializes this class object with those values that we read from the database. And when we come back, we've now appended this first row into data as a class object now. It's no longer, or into TPL demo items as a class object. You can see here, demo item object at a memory address. And if we look at it, we can see that that first one is those values. So what this is doing is taking each of those rows and converting it into additional class objects. Every time it loops through, we get another class object. We're going to get the last one. And now we come back from here, and if we look at data, that's why these are now objects made with the class that we created, but they still have the same information. It's just that now we can use the dot operator. Now we need to go to display data. If we go into display data, well, this needs to be changed because now we no longer use the index numbers. We are now going not for each line in data. In fact, I'm going to hit F2 and change that to object. And I don't want to use object. I'm going to put what it is. It's really demo item in data. And then I'm going to rename this actually with F2 as items because it makes more sense because these are demo items. And I don't need this anymore. Well, or at least this changes to the elements. We want our demo item dot, and it'll be row ID, and then here, let's see, I think we can do this. Can we do that? Yeah, that way we can, by specifying the type with that, we can now say dot, and we can get our IntelliSense. We're going to get the row ID and then the text. So now we're able to, rather than using index numbers, try to figure out what 0 and 1 is, or -1, we're now able to use our properties, and it should make it a little bit more, a little cleaner. So that's our display data modified to use it. Let's see if it works. Yep, still working. Okay. And what else can we modify to use a class? Well, we can go back to our repo, and so we've modified this to use the class. We've modified this to use a class. Our insert, assuming we're getting an item. I'm just changing these because it could use data if we wanted, but it just makes more sense when you think of it as an item. And here, and then we're going to say this is going to be a demo item. Then I think it cleans it up here nicely, because now what we do is we put a tuple inside of our execute for things that we want to substitute in. And we just put item dot num1 item. And what we're doing is we're looking here, what do we want? We want num1 field, item dot num2. This one's wanting the string field, so we're going to put item dot text. So this is now taking a demo item, and we're using the properties. And although it's a little bit more verbose, it's clearer what's going into the SQL command. You can see that these elements are going here, and that helps with maintenance of something like this. And we're going to just do the same thing here. The neat thing is that now I can just bring in an item, and it already has a row ID. And so now, with our SQL command, I can very specifically specify what I want in here. I want item dot, and it's going to be basically this stuff. And then for me to add the row ID at the end, I just specify it, row ID. So we can put num1, num2, text is going in there, and then the row ID is going in here. More verbose, but it's clearer and easier to understand what's going on. And then the delete, again, we'll just use a row ID there. That's fine. That really doesn't need to be changed. And now this is now using the class in this repo. It's using this this is often called the model. And then this is the repo, which has all of our interaction with the database. And then in our app, we need to make a few changes. Well, actually in our view. So in our view, we will need to change, we've already changed display data, we've already changed display item. Get item from user now needs to return an actual item. Well, we will just make a demo item here. And we need a row ID. And so since we're just starting off, we'll put in a 0 for the row ID. And that should do it. We're now using a class. So we get an item from user, we're getting an item. So I think I'm going to change that to item. Again, you don't have to do that, but it just makes it, I think, cleaner. Get item from user. Let's see if our update was changed. Yeah, so the other thing that we need to do is in here, we got the row ID. Our update now just takes an item. So how do we get that there? We say item.row ID is equal to row ID that we got from the user here. And I think everything works now. So let's see. Let's insert an item. Yep, that looks right. That worked. Let's update 4. Yep. Let's delete 5. Oh, let's delete. Yep, deleted it, and then we can quit. Okay, so that works, and we now have an example of how we do repos in a more advanced way, where we're using a class, demo item, just a standard class that we created, in order to hold our data and pass the data back and forth. And why do we want to do this? Well, it kind of clears up, it makes it from the app's perspective a little bit more, I think, intuitive what's happening. We're getting an item, a data item from here. I think I'm going to change this. This could just be item. So we get a selected index, we get an item. We know that that's going to be a demo item in this. And so it cleans, it kind of makes the code more intuitive in the sense of seeing what's happening. It abstracts away a lot of complexity that we see. And one of the things that it does for us is in our repo, it ensures that we know what is going where in our code. So here we know we're not looking at index numbers and wondering what those are. We know specifically that's num1, that's num2, and that's text. So these properties help clarify and make sure that we know what's going where from our class. Okay, thank you very much.